It's time to set those winning lineups for week one of the fantasy football season. We're going to give you our boom picks at wide receiver. All right, Chris, let's set the stage early with some big games from some big players. Who you got in mind?
I got Calvin Ridley in mind. I think Calvin Ridley is going to have a huge week one. It's not like the matchup is some phenomenal matchup. Like they're not playing the Cardinals or somebody like that, but they're playing the Colts. Not the worst matchup. Not really scared of that matchup at all. But I think kind of like what we saw with A.J. Brown last year in week one, the Jaguars are going to use and show off their new toy. And when you look at Calvin Ridley in the preseason in games with Trevor Lawrence, like when Trevor Lawrence and the starters were actually out there, he had a 31% target share and a 41% air yard share. Those are absolutely massive numbers. Now, I don't think he's going to sustain that over the season, but I think he can sustain that in week one because, like I said, I think they're going to want to get him involved right away, acclimated to this offense. They're going to dial up a ton of plays for him. I think Calvin Ridley is going to have an absolute monster game in week one to show the team and to show the NFL, like, hey, we got a steal in Calvin Ridley, and this guy still has it. So if you have Calvin Ridley, if you drafted him, this is the week. I mean, there's going to be a lot of weeks where I'm going to tell you to start Calvin Ridley, but this week especially, I think he just goes absolutely off in this matchup, helps people win weeks, maybe wins DFS millions, who knows. But Calvin Ridley primed for a huge week one. I got to get him in every one of my lineups this week.
All right, I'm going to go with another familiar name, and that is Keenan Allen. Now, he's not as exciting to fantasy owners these days because, I mean, he's a little bit older. You know, the Chargers, they just drafted a wide receiver. Maybe he's going to replace Keenan Allen. You know, he's always banged up, misses some games lately. Maybe he's lost a step or two. Well, let me set the record straight. First of all, Quentin Johnson is not the Keenan Allen replacement. It's a very different type of receiver, and it's hard to say whether he's even ready for the pros because got some drops issues. But that doesn't really matter. Keenan Allen is going to be the number one receiver in this offense. And it's easy to forget that he was really good, in fact, elite towards the end of last season after he got healthy. So for the final 6 games of 2022, he was actually a top 10 PPR fantasy receiver. He was good throughout the second half. Every game he played, he was rock solid. He's always been that type of player, but there's actually reason to be even more excited about him this season, and that's a new offensive coordinator that won't just stick Keenan Allen in the slot every single game. And we're actually going to have maybe a little bit of variety in the play calling, all right? Not just dump it off to Austin Eckler every time things fall apart. Keenan Allen, I like this season in general, but in this game against the Dolphins, you have to keep in mind, although the Dolphins are a good defense, they just lost star corner Jalen Ramsey because he's going to be out for a while, an unfortunate injury in the preseason. Xavier Howard is still really good, but he's probably going to be on Mike Williams a little bit more. Keenan Allen, I think, is going to have a field day. This could be a shootout as it is, but Keenan Allen, look, coming off of a nice long offseason, he's ready to show that he's excited to be in this offense, and I think he has a monster week one. All right, who else do you think is going to blow up?
I think Jahan Dotson is going to blow up this week. And I mentioned, that Calvin Ridley wasn't playing the Arizona Cardinals, but you know who is? Jahan Dotson and the Commanders are playing the Arizona Cardinals, and this defense is absolutely terrible. The only player I can even name on defense right now is Budda Baker. He's a safety. He's not going to have any impact on Jahan Dotson at all. There's nobody on this field who can cover Jahan Dotson in this game. And the other benefit for Dotson this week is Terry McLaurin almost certainly is not going to play. And if he even does play, he's going to be severely limited with that turf toe. Jahan Dotson likely going to be the number one target in this offense, going against arguably the worst defense in the NFL. And this guy is an absolute stud. He is so good. He's a great route runner, one of the best contested catch wide receivers. Sam Howell doesn't have to throw it perfectly for him. Just get it anywhere close to him and he will catch it. He's going to be wide open all over the field. They're not going to be able to get a pass rush on Sam Howell. The Commanders should have an easy time in this game. You talked about Brian Robinson in the running back video. I think you're right. I like Brian Robinson, but they're still going to throw the ball some. They're not going to not throw it at all. And the likelihood is most of the passes are going to go to Dotson because he's the best wide receiver that's going to be on the field in this game. And he's going to be wide open everywhere. They're not going to be able to stop him. Has huge receiving upside, reception upside, and even has touchdown upside this week. Dotson, one of those guys I really think is going to break out this year. I think he should be up there with more of the second-year wide receivers like Wilson, Olave, and Drake London, but he's not. But I think in week 1, he absolutely does break out and has a huge game.
I'm going to go back to another veteran receiver who I think is in a smash spot. Tyler Lockett in Seattle. Now, this is another team that drafted a wide receiver in the first round, and people are thinking, Lockett, well, maybe his time is done. He's not going to be one of the top receivers. Maybe he'll fall down to number 3 on that wide receiver depth chart. First of all, we've proven that Tyler Lockett is still one of the better receivers in the game. If you follow Matt Harmon of Reception Perception, which you should, we had a nice long conversation with him in the preseason right before the draft, talking about rookie receivers. He likes JSN. We like JSN, but he also showed that Tyler Lockett is an elite route runner. He's got green all over the map. This guy is not done. He's far from done. He's going to still have a great season. So besides the fact that, well, JSN is going to be a factor, but maybe not as big as people think because Lockett is still good. JSN might not even play in week 1. He's got that wrist issue. It's hard to say what's going to happen. Even if he does play, how effective will he be? How involved will he be? My bet is he doesn't play. That leaves more targets for Lockett. And, oh, by the way, they face a team that now doesn't have Jalen Ramsey anymore. That would be the Los Angeles Rams. This team has fallen so far off from their championship season. Right now, he's going to get to face the likes of Akello Witherspoon, Darian Kendrick, and Kobe Durant. Those are the cornerbacks, the top 3 corners for the Rams. Don't tell me that those guys are going to shut down Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, because they're not. I think that both receivers could have a field day, but I especially like Lockett because of the fact he's going to play in the slot. He's going to get those deep balls. Look, last year, he actually had 2 really good games against the Rams already. He went for 9 catches, 128 yards, and a touchdown the first time he played the Rams last year. And then the second game, it wasn't as high scoring, but he still caught 4 balls for 54 yards and another touchdown. I think that Lockett is in a great spot this week. Kind of one of those guys that's been forgotten about, or maybe he's not as interesting these days, but he is still a good receiver. And I also love his line. When you do those pick'ems on underdog, I mean, right now we're looking at 59.5 yards. He can easily go over that. I'm taking him and a guy like Keenan Allen, who is at 61.5 yards. You're telling me these veterans can't go over 60-something yards in these matchups? I'm hitting over on both those guys. Put them together, triple my money, no questions asked. If you haven't tried Underdog, by the way, this is a good time to get in on the action. Make sure you use promo code ENDGAME so you get your 100% deposit match. All right, but let's go to another receiver that you think is going to boom.
Well, Christian Watson is a guy who can boom on any given week, of course, but I think he does boom this week with Jordan Love. I know a lot of people worried Aaron Rodgers gone, it's Jordan Love. You know, can Christian Watson still boom? Yes, Christian Watson can absolutely still boom. This is a guy who was a great vertical route runner last year, did some other things well also, but I think he's going to develop this year into more of a complete wide receiver. He's going to be the number 1 guy here. I mean, Romeo Doubs, I kind of like him, but he didn't do a whole lot as a rookie. I do like Jaden Reed, the other rookie, but again, he's a rookie. Luke Musgrave, rookie tight end. Christian Watson going to be the clear alpha wide receiver here. And even though the Bears aren't necessarily, the terrible secondary like they were in years past, they've gotten better. I still think there's going to be enough chances for Christian Watson. This is a guy, just get him the ball. It doesn't have to be a pinpoint down the field throw to this guy. Just hit him on a slant, hit him in space, and he can just run by everybody. At any moment, he can be doing nothing, and then suddenly, bang, 50-yard touchdown, and he's making his entire day. Christian Watson has tremendous upside this week in week 1. It has tremendous upside every week, to be honest, but I really like him this week in this matchup against the Bears. I think he hits at least one big play, scores a touchdown. If you got Christian Watson, start him.
Let me go back to another veteran receiver, not as old as the first 2 I picked, but Courtland Sutton, another guy that really has been slept on. A little more interesting now because Jerry Jeudy is hurt. It's hard to say how long he'll be out, but I have a feeling that at the very least in week 1, this team is going to need to target Courtland Sutton a lot. Now, I don't think they'll need to throw a lot because they're facing the Raiders, and I don't really see the Raiders putting up that big of a fight, to be honest. But I will tell you, I'm also not overly impressed by that Raiders defense or their secondary, especially. Now, Courtland Sutton didn't have a great season last year because, well, he was on the Broncos offense, right? Nobody on that offense had anything close to a good year. Sean Payton will help. I'm not saying that all of a sudden this is going to be one of the most dynamic offenses in the league, but it will be better because it really can't get worse. But it wasn't Sutton's fault. I mean, all of the fault really lies on two people. That would be the head coach, Nathaniel Hackett, and then Russell Wilson, right? He could have done better. I think Russell Wilson will be better, and look, Sutton was still effective when he had the chance, meaning he had a target that was even somewhat catchable. There were so many targets that were not even close, but he was 12th in open rate last year, according to ESPN, and that means he was able to get separation, get open. He just needed the ball in his general vicinity. I think it'll happen more this year. It'll happen plenty this week against that Raiders secondary. And again, with hardly any target competition, honestly, Sutton could be a guy that kind of puts up a lot of numbers. And people say, how did that happen? Well, that's what happens when you're a good receiver that gets a lot of balls thrown your way against a bad defense. Now you know which receivers we love in week one. Don't forget about all the other positions. We got our booms and our start sit. It's all here on this playlist.